Hey there friends! Thanks for joining me again, Frugal Green Girl. And yesterday I was actually going around my house. I had some free time and so I was just caulking some things that, where the caulk was older and it kind of peeled a little bit, or there was cracks in it, or other things that were supposed to have been caulked at one time and never were. And so as I was doing this work, I was kind of like thinking to myself about all the different things that we've done on our house and all the different ways that we've used to save money and reduce how much our utilities are and all these things. And so I decided to start brainstorming a whole list of things that might help you guys, because there are some things out there that you can do that can really help save a lot of money. Some things are a little bit more money up front, some things are less expensive and easier to do, but all of them will make an impact. Some of them will make less of an impact, and some will make a bigger impact. So this list is sort of long, and so I'm sure that something will work for everyone on this list. And I have it broken down into different categories. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go with gas or heating oil first. And so there are lots of different things that you could do to help save on your natural gas bill. And I would say one of the best things when you're running your furnace in the winter would be to change the filter. Changing the filter helps your furnace to run more efficiently, and so it's going to heat your house better and with less money. And it's really inexpensive. It's really easy to do too. Just buy a new filter and change them regularly so that it doesn't become a problem. And this can also help save on repairs too, so it's a double saver. The second thing would be to turn up your AC or down your furnace. Now I know that this is probably a common way that people try to save money, but it's really not as bad as it sounds, especially since in the wintertime you can do other things to keep yourself warm. Things like cooking in your house is, going to help heat it anyway. You can wear a sweater or a blanket rather than, turning the heater up. Things like that. Humidifiers can also help make your house feel warmer. Just like when you go to a place that has a a place that's more humid than where you are now, or at least for me, because I live in Colorado and it's dry here, so when I go somewhere else I notice the humidity. The humidity makes it feel warmer, even though the temperature is the same. So having a humidifier and then turning your furnace down can save some money. Yes, the humidifier does take a little bit of electricity, but the savings is bigger with having turned down that furnace. So there's one thing. And then the AC, instead of having it quite so low, you can turn it, a little higher or whatever, so it's just to where it's comfortable, not to where the point where your house is an ice box. Or you can have something to where it's moving the air, because moving air feels cooler. So instead of having it quite so low, set it a little higher and then turn on a ceiling fan or any other type of fan around you, and that can also help a lot. So there's another thing. Zone heating if you have a larger house. My grandpa, this is where I got his idea. He has a really big, or had a 2,000 square foot house, and so instead of heating the whole thing, he would turn the furnace lower there, and then he would have a heater that he would use specifically just in the room where he was at. So not only was he more comfortable because that whole room was warm like he liked it, but it also saved on his utility bills because he didn't have to heat the whole 2,000 square foot house when he's only in the den. So that was a really effective way to help reduce costs there. But that only really works if you live in a bigger house. If you have a smaller house and you're in most of it or whatever, it doesn't seem to make as big of a difference. So keep that in mind. Especially if you're using an electric heater to make that zone heat, because electric heaters are one of the most expensive ways to heat your house. So definitely keep that in mind. Drafts, of course, can be kept out with caulk, like I was just doing the other day when I was winterizing my house. Weather stripping is another good one. Around doors, and caulk around the windows and things like that. Door sweeps, there can be drafts from underneath doors that can be easily fixed just by putting a door sweep at the bottom of the door to keep out those drafts. And then insulating curtains. I did a video last year on insulating curtains and how they can help keep your windows from letting out all the heat in the winter time, as well as those can also help keep the heat out in the summertime. So actually most of these things, the caulk, the weather stripping, things like that, are going to work both times of the year. In the wintertime to help keep you warmer, and in the summertime to help keep you cooler, to keep that heat out. Let's see. Shrink wrap kits. I've seen these many times, and before we got new windows we used to use them. Basically it's like a piece of double-sided tape with some plastic you put on top of it, and it makes it so there's an airlock between the windows. This can help if you have older windows. If you already have double pane windows or low E glass, this probably isn't going to be as helpful unless you have a broken window or something like that. But if it is a single pane window and you can't afford to fix it, or if you're a renter and wouldn't want to, invest in a property that's not yours, this can definitely be an easy and inexpensive way to keep those windows from having, too much. It'll increase the R factor of the windows and help keep the cold or whatever and the warm from coming in. Except once you put them on, you can't open them, so that's something to consider. That's probably more useful to use in the winter than any other time of year. If you can afford it, putting in new windows would be a really good way to help reduce the utility bills too. When we first bought our house, we had single pane windows, and we just took our tax return check one year, and it was only several $100s to do anyway. We bought the windows and then we put them all in ourselves to help reduce the cost, and it made a huge difference. Going from a single pane wood window to a double pane vinyl window was huge. So even though that's a little more expensive, it does save money in the long run, so it's an investment really. Okay, so let's see, more insulation in the attic. Here's another expensive suggestion. I know it sounds, like the cost would be a little bit high up front, but hear me out on this. We first bought our house and there was only about 3 inches of blow-in insulation in the attic. And so what we did is we waited for the insulation that we wanted, which was R30. It's like 11 inches thick, and it's fiberglass. We waited until the insulation we wanted was on sale, and then we got another discount on top of it. So a $50 bat of insulation was down to $27 with all these discounts, and so we bought it all at once. And it was about $350, with all the tax and everything, for how much we needed for this insulation. But when we went up there and we put it all in there, it made a huge difference, not only in how much it saved us, but it also made a huge difference in how comfortable the house felt. So it was definitely worth the investment again. We had to spend $350 to get the insulation, but then when you see your bills, substantially lower every single month, and it works both winter and summer because that heat isn't coming in through the roof and the shingles and into the house, it's insulating that sun out. It made the house warmer in the winter, and it helped to keep the house cooler in the summer. So it really was a good investment, and it really wasn't hard to do either. We weren't skilled people, and we were able to just go up there and throw it in, and it was easy. So that's probably one of the more expensive suggestions I have on the list, but it does make a big difference. If you're a homeowner and you don't have adequate insulation, I would highly recommend it when you can afford it. Okay, so another suggestion, here's another another expensive one, would be a green heating system like the greenhouse I have. That was another one of the things that cost a fair amount of money, but it also made a huge impact on my utility bills. And so things like using your greenhouse to heat your house, or a video I just put out, I think last week, using like a solar window box heater or something like that. I put out a video for a solar window box heater that actually doubles as a sun oven, which there's 2 versions of savings. You don't have to cook your food. There's more savings there. So things like this can definitely help save your utility bills, because then you won't have to spend so much heating your house, at least in the daytime. So over time that can definitely add up, and you'll see a difference on your bill there. A tankless water heater. Okay, here's another one we did only because we had to. Our water heater, we knew it was going out. It was kind of starting to leak, and so we went ahead and saved up enough money and we bought a water heater off of Craigslist. It was a tankless one. And then we let it sit for a few until our water heater actually went out. And then our friend came over and helped us install it. The day we were installing it, I saw the gas meter guy come over. I saw him through the window, and I'm like, who is that? He's in our yard, and I'm like, oh, it's just the gas guy. So I knew that the day we put it in was the day that the gas bill came in. So I thought, or the day that the guy was reading it, so I knew that the bill before that was all with our tanked water heater, and the next bill was all going to be with the tankless water heater. So I said, okay, I'm going to remember that. I'm going to see how much of a savings this tankless water heater helps. And ours is in the basement, so keeping a big tank of water hot all the time in a basement is actually kind of expensive. So a tankless water heater actually heats the water right as you use it, and instead of keeping it all warm all of the time. So anyway, I thought I was going to think about it, and check the bill, and then a month later, of course, I had forgotten, and I knew my last bill was $35, and the next bill came in, and I was expecting it to be a little bit higher than that. I looked at the bill and I saw it, and I'm like, oh, 51. That's not bad. I put it down, and then something in my head said that wasn't 51. Look at that bill again. So I picked it up, took a little bit better of a look at it this time, and I saw it said $15. So I was expecting it to go up because we had put the new tankless hot water heater in October, and then we were going to be using this in November. So I knew the bill was supposed to go up because we were also using the furnace, and yet my bill went down by a lot. So a tankless water heater can actually save, again, a lot of money because it doesn't have to keep that big tank of water hot all the time. Is it worth taking out your tanked water heater and putting in a tankless, just because? Maybe. I guess it depends on how old your hot water, or your water heater is. But if you're in the same position like we were, where we knew our water heater was about to die and we have to change it anyway, I really do think it would be worth considering at least. Plus, they're easier to use because now we never run out of water, whereas we used to. If we had multiple people trying to bathe at once, the person who was getting the last got the short end of the stick in the cold shower. And that doesn't happen anymore. So it's cheaper and it works better in real life. I really am a fan of those. And I've had mine for like 4 years, never had a problem with it, so I really like it. Okay, so let's see. Oh, or a solar water heater. That would be even better than a tankless water heater. So instead of using gas to heat your water like any water heater would, a tanked or a tankless, a solar water heater actually heats the water with the sun. So I'm working on a video on putting together a really practical and easy to use 3-season solar water heater, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be fun. I'm really excited about that. And then my last suggestion for different ways that you can save on gas would be to wash your laundry in cold water. So instead of using warm water, or even hot water, except when it's necessary, just wash your laundry in cold water. There are lots of different laundry detergents that can use cold water. I came out with one a while back, a liquid laundry detergent that can use cold water, and your laundry can get just as clean in cold water as it does in warm. So that's definitely something to consider. It will add up over time. And so let's move on to the next category of things, ways to save electricity. So my favorite way to save electricity is just to turn things off. It actually drives my husband really nuts. He's definitely on board with this. When somebody is in a room and they're using the light and then they leave the room and they leave the light on or whatever, something like that, it definitely can cause the energy bill to be higher than it needs to be because of waste. It's really a waste to leave stuff plugged in or on when it doesn't really need to be. So just turn things off. Turn off fans when you leave the room. Turn off the lights. Turn off the TV, things like that. And you'll see over time that it will add up. So that can definitely help. Another thing would be what they call energy vampires. That's basically like things that go into standby mode. The most common things would be like VCRs and TVs. When you have it turned on and you just click the power button to turn it off, it's still drawing electricity the whole time it's off, just so it can be in that standby mode. So having things like TVs, other electronics, computers, things like that, all connected with a power strip where they're all plugged in to the power strip, and in the evening or whenever you're done with the appliance or whatever and you turn it off, instead of just turning it into standby mode, turn it into off, and then flip the switch on the power strip so that it stops drawing power when you don't need it. So getting into the habit of doing these types of things every night before bed or whatever can help save that energy that you're really not even using. It's a total waste for it to just be drawing energy all night when you're sleeping anyway. So that can also help. Those are definitely helpful. As far as light bulbs go, there are several different types of light bulbs out there. There's obviously the incandescent light bulbs. These draw the most electricity. And so a while back they came out with CFL's compact fluorescent light bulbs, and those helped save a lot of electricity, but the problem with them is that they had high levels of mercury. And so while they saved electricity, they were really good on one hand, they also had a drawback. And now they've come out with an even better solution, which is LED. They save even more electricity and they don't have the mercury in them like the CFLs do. So I'm a real big fan of them. I've been slowly switching them out. It's not something I can go around my whole house and put in all new LEDs everywhere. But as I have a light bulb that, goes out or whatever, instead of buying one of the other versions, I will go ahead and buy an LED. And I haven't had one burn out yet. They last a really long time. So even though they're more expensive to buy, they last a really long time and they save money throughout their whole entire life that you're using them. So those can be really helpful. especially if you have high ceilings and the light bulbs are hard to get to anyway. Then they're really helpful because then you just put them in and leave them there for like 6 years. Okay, so the next thing I would suggest would be energy efficient appliances. There are lots of different appliances that we use, whether they're large appliances like refrigerators and freezers and things like that, dishwashers, things. So consider, if you're going to be buying new ones, to get energy efficient ones, or if you're even buying them used. I just had my washing machine go out, and so I made sure to buy an energy efficient washing machine, but I still bought it off of Craigslist. So, as you need things, just consider buying energy efficient versions. Large appliances, small appliances, they make lots of energy efficient small appliances for your kitchen, things like that. And also your heating and cooling systems. We don't tend to put those in very often, but if you get the opportunity to put in, or have to, if your furnace goes out or something like that, or you're installing an air conditioner, etc., try and make, conscious decisions about what's going to be the least with the bills later on. I had my brother suggesting to me to buy and put in a new AC unit. I think it was last summer. And I was kind of like teetering, it'd be nice, I guess, but I'm really not a fan of the way, AC works. And so instead we opted for an evaporative cooler, which uses a lot less electricity, and I'm really glad that we did. While we go over to his house and it's nice and cool in the summer, ours is cool too. Ours just uses a lot less electricity. So next would be to air dry your clothes and or your hair. I don't like to blow dry my hair anyway because it's bad for your hair, and it's also bad for your clothes to put them in the dryer because of the heat. It can make them last less long. So just hang them out to dry, or when you take a shower, just let it dry on its own. Definitely these will help save electricity, and it will also help on your wear and tear on your clothes, help them last longer, which will save also, and it's also better for your hair. When you're using your dryer, sticking with the dryer theme here, make sure you clean the lint screen every time. It also helps to keep your dryer working efficiently, so make sure you change it every single time. It's really easy to do. Pull it out, take the lint out and whatnot, and over time it will help keep the thing cleaner, the ductwork and everything, and it'll also help your clothes dry faster and your machine lasting longer, so that's a good thing as well. A dryer heat diverter. I actually just got one of these and I'm really excited to test it out. It attaches to the ductwork and it can divert the heat either outside for when it's summertime, or you can divert the heat into the house when you want to. So I'm really excited about this, to test it out and see if it works and if it's worth it or not. Does it add a lot of humidity to the air? So stay tuned for that. That's going to be coming up very soon. Sun oven is another way to save electricity. I know I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about the gas, but if you have an electric stove like I do, this can help save a lot of money by simply using a sun oven to cook your food instead of your range. Next would be to turn off your dishwasher when it's finished. Ours has an automatic dry mode, so once the dishwasher runs and it's finished, it just goes into a drying mode where it heats the dishes and it dries off all the water from the dishes. Well, instead of letting the dishwasher dry the dishes, what we have decided to do is try and get to it right away, turn it off, and then we either just let them air dry if we need some, go somewhere or whatever, we just leave them there to air dry, or we'll just wipe them with a rag so that it doesn't have to use that heater inside the dishwasher to to dry those dishes. So the next thing would be to ditch your second fridge. There are a lot of people out there that have an extra fridge, like in their garage or their basement or whatever. Those draw a lot of electricity, and oftentimes they're not even all the way full. People will be using them for just a few drinks and things like that, and so if you're really trying to help save on your electric bill or whatnot, if you have an extra appliance like that that you're not entirely using all of the time, you may not need it. Let's see. Oh, and the last thing on my list would be to unplug chargers and appliances when they're not in use. Just like I mentioned earlier with the energy vampires, this is very much the same thing. When you have like a cell phone charger or things like that, oftentimes they're drawing electricity the whole time they're plugged in, even if they're not charging that thing that they're charging, or the appliance that you're using is still using electricity even though you're not using the appliance. So just get into the habit of, when you're done with something in the kitchen or the bathroom or whatever, just unplug it when you're done, and then over time this can help save electricity. So that concludes the electricity portion of it. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the last of the three categories, and that's saving water. So the first thing that I like to do, and actually totally drives me crazy when I see people do this, is turn off water when they're not using it. There are people, I've gone over to their house and they're brushing their teeth, they'll turn it on to wet their toothbrush, but the whole time they're brushing their teeth, the water's just running the whole time and they're not even using it. And so definitely this can help save a lot of money in the long run and in the short run, especially if there are multiple people in a household that are using this, to just go ahead and turn off that water. Wet the toothbrush, turn it off, and then do whatever it is you're doing. Or when you're using the sink to do your dishes, instead of leaving the water running as you're rinsing the dishes, just turn it on, rinse the dish, turn it off, instead of leaving it running in between all of it, because it really can help save a lot of water by not having it running, even in those times when you're not using it. So there's one. Use the correct size on the laundry settings. We had an old washer, it just broke not long ago, so we got a new one. But before, we had a washer that had several settings, and it drove me crazy when my husband would go ahead and start some laundry. It would be a small load, and he forgot to set it from large or extra large down to that small. So when you're going to do laundry, if you have a setting on your washing machine, make sure you choose the correct setting. It's not only going to help the clothes get cleaner and more efficiently by using, the right amount of water rather than too much water with less soap and less clothes. It's just not as efficient that way, but it'll also help save a lot of water. So please make sure you choose to do laundry with the right setting. Or if you're getting a new washing machine, if yours broke like ours just did, get one that has the ability to automatically sense what the size of the load is, and then it'll just use the right amount of water automatically. So that's even more helpful, because then we don't even have to remember. So that's really super helpful. Or if you have only one size on your washing machine, make sure to do full loads every time. And the same with the dishwasher. Both of them, they're going to use the same amount of water no matter how many dishes or whatever are in there, so you might as well just run full loads only. So that can help be more efficient. Speaking of efficiency, toilets. We just put in a new toilet. I do property management, that's sort of my job. But anyway, we just put in a new toilet for one of the tenants, and it was a dual flush. I really am excited about this. It has one side where it's a quick flush for, say, a number 1, and then a more water flush if it's, a number 2. And so energy efficient toilets that use a lot less water are definitely the wave of the future. And so far it's been working out well. My parents have one just like it, and now we just put this one in, and so I'm really excited to see how much water that's going to help save. Or if you're not in the market for a new toilet, if it didn't break like the last one we were just replacing, just flush less often. I don't mean to be giving you TMI here, but our family, if it's a number 1, we won't always flush it. We'll just leave it for a little while until the next person comes along. And so, I know there are a lot of people out there that do that. Some people don't like that, but that's just a suggestion. If you can flush less often, that would definitely help, since toilets are one of the biggest water users in the household. Take shorter showers if you can. There are lots of ways to help take shorter showers, or you can install low flow like faucets. We used to have a faucet that used a fair amount of water, and then we got one of the low flows, and I noticed a big difference on how much water it saved. So if you don't want to take shorter showers, that's okay. You can always just go the route of using the low flow faucet or shower head, and that can help save a lot of water. Or even use a gray water system. I just showed earlier in this summer of how we use a gray water system, especially on our shower, where we use the water twice. We use it to shower once, and then we use it a second time by putting it on the lawn, and that can help save a lot of water too. Okay, so fixing and finding and fixing leaks that you may have around. Everybody around, I'm sure, has seen one of those faucets that constantly drips, and even though it's only one drip of water, over time and all day long and all night long, that drip actually adds up to a lot of gallons of water. And over the course of months or years, it could be hundreds or thousands of gallons of water that are going down the drain for no reason. And there are lots of other types of leaks too. Like when your toilet kind of has a sound, like it sounds like it's leaking. It could be leaking from the tank to the bowl. that could be adding up to a lot of water as well. So leaks like this, if you find and fix them, can save, you know, a considerable amount over time, because why pay for something that you're not even using anyway? The water's just getting wasted. It's not even, you know, even useful. So that is all for the indoor water. We're almost done. Stick with me. Okay, so just a couple more things on how to save water in the yard. Mulch. Mulch can be a really good way to help save water, especially if you're using it on stuff like trees and things like that. It's also good in the garden to help save water and whatnot, and if you live in a dry climate, this is really going to be helpful. Don't water the sidewalk. I see this all the time and it drives me crazy sometimes, but if you have a sprinkler system, or even if you're setting up a sprinkler, try to keep it to where it's watering the plants that it needs to, and not all over the street and the sidewalk and the driveway and things like that. It's just going to cause weeds to grow and cause the water to just run off and go straight into the gutter, and that's not really useful either, because we don't need it there. So try and water efficiently by not watering things that don't need to be like that. Water in either the evening or the morning. Watering in the middle of the day causes a considerable amount of evaporation, so my favorite time to water is actually in the evening. I really think that it helps my plants the best to water in the evening, because then they have all night long to soak up that water before the sun comes out the next day and causes it to evaporate. And when we get thunderstorms, they tend to come in the evening. So I really do think that nature is telling us when the best time to water is, and it's in the evening. But if you can't, then the morning is also a good time, because then the plants will at least have a little bit of time to absorb that water before it just evaporates away. Let's see. Sweep your sidewalks and your decks instead of hosing them off. A lot of times people will just hose off their deck or their sidewalk to get it clean, whereas that uses a lot of water. You could just sweep it and make it clean that way, and it can still be very clean without having to use that water. A broom, you buy it once and then use it over and over again, whereas that water would just you'd have to pay for it every single time you're doing that. And then my last suggestion would be different ways that you can save water with, like rain barrels, where you're collecting rainwater so you don't even have to buy the city water. Or drip irrigation systems, things like that use just small amounts of water so that it really has a chance to soak in before it gets evaporated, unlike overhead sprinklers and things like that really cause a lot of evaporation. So drip irrigation systems are another good way. And also soaker hoses, those can be another good way. If you remember to turn them off. That was my main problem with soaker hoses, is that they don't make any noise, so I don't remember to make sure to turn them off or turn them on and then turn them off at an appropriate time. So soaker hoses can also be another good way to make sure the water goes straight to the ground and into the roots, rather than all over the place where it's not really needed. So now I want to hear from you. What kinds of things are you doing to make a significant difference on your utility bills? And have I forgotten anything? As hard as I tried to brainstorm a big list of things to share with you to help you save money, of course I'm going to forget something. So tell me if I've forgotten anything, and also share with me what's made a big difference on your utility bills. And I can't wait to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.